Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Shore. Welcome to the 3-1 Group podcast. And I'm going to bring in my colleagues, Mike Morgan and Kevin Kolbe, as we do each time. We talk about a number of topics that we believe are important to you and should be important to you. But then sometimes we realize what the 3-1 Group is all about. We bring three extensive experienced backgrounds to the table so that we can provide one area of growth and expertise to you. And it helps ourselves because that's why we're friends and we compare notes with each other. So we're going to spend some time breaking down some areas that are important to each of us in our backgrounds. And I'm going to start it out, guys, because I think one of the most important things when you look at the world of leadership that I think that people have to understand is the concept of whether or not leadership comes naturally to you or if it can be taught to somebody. Because I think all of you have been in a situation where someone has put someone into a manager role, maybe, and they said, you know what, you'll pick it up. You'll pick it up over time. And I just think that it's such a misconception that you can look at somebody, you can say it's natural that they can't learn and grow and have some experience. And I think that the growth of it is such an important thing.
Yeah, Dave, look, you know, the listeners aren't going to likely know this about you and your background, but you've been around, interacted with, and gotten to know some of the biggest leaders in the world of sports. I mean, you know, some of the biggest names that every person in the world would recognize, not only the coaches and managers and owners, but the floor leaders, the people on, you know, the players themselves. Are there any, common traits that you've seen? And to your point about being natural leaders or being developed leaders, however you get there, are there a set of traits that are common that you've seen kind of throughout your experience with all of these different leaders that you've encountered?
You know, Mike, I think that's a great question. I go back to my sports experience, and I'll actually use a story that Coach K talked about one time when we were talking about how he picked a captain on Team USA, the Olympic team. It's laden with stars. Everybody was on it. LeBron, Kobe, everyone. But he did not know going into the Team USA training camp as to who would be the captain, who'd be the leader of a group of so talented people. And what I think Coach K does very well is what I think we should all do as well. And that is observe who people attract to and why they attract to that certain person. So it turned out to be Dwayne Wade, who would not be my most likely candidate to do it, but it was the one that the rest of the superstars gravitated to. And I think that those traits had a lot to do with that Dwayne leads by example. He's an encourager, but he's a listener. So, and he played guard. So he's used to giving assists to guys. And so I think it's a very interesting set of concepts that the traits have to be kind of multi-tiered in a way.
And so, Dave, what's one of the biggest mistakes you see people make in leadership?
I think, you know what, I think what it is, Kevin, is that they think of leadership as only that I'm managing a group of people. So sometimes, and I've been in small organizations where the person is really upset that they don't get a chance to manage somebody else, that they don't have direct reports because they think that's the only thing that leadership is about. When if you're at a company and you're the database manager or you're the manager of communications, you are managing something. You're managing an important part of the integrity of a company. And I think so the confusion factor is always that a manager has to be somebody that is just the boss to a couple of people.
That's a good point.
Do you find that leadership is given or earned more often?
And that's another great one, because I think too often, Mike, and you've been in cultures like this too, that I think that it's given because of sometimes seniority or whatever, and it really hasn't been earned. And I think another thing is that you have to ask that person, do you want this? And I think that a lot of times the decision maker has just shoved somebody out there thinking that this is what we should do. And so I honestly think it's earned and very often, but I think they also have to buy into it as well. I mean, how many times have you had somebody that said, I really don't want to do that? Yeah. And they are the hardest one to put in there because they don't see themselves as someone that people would come to for expertise, advice, or perspective.
Let me ask you a follow-up on that. Do you believe there's a difference in a leader and a manager, or are there differences? And if so, what are they?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I think the important thing is that I think a leader is in a position that they do something as well. So I always thought in every broadcast executive job I was in, I was also on the air. And I enjoyed that dual role because I thought that in the leadership part, it was important that I showed that I could do it as well, that I felt like I could contribute as well. And I wasn't just the one saying, you go do this, you go do this, you go do this. And so I think that's important part. I think that the manager thing is you're able to prioritize, you're able to do a lot of fundamentals of management that is going to lead to a process, to an outcome, to success, to goals, and everything like that. And so I think that it's very interesting. Some people are more managers than they are leaders. And we always put it down under one umbrella of leadership.
So what would be some advice you would give already folks that are in a leadership and maybe even a senior leadership position as they're looking for other leaders in their organization? What advice would you give them?
I would give them that advice that you've never reached the pinnacle. No matter how many years you've been at a company or that you've been a so-called leader, you can never stop learning. And I think that I've really learned a lot by watching athletic teams and talking to those coaches and athletes. That is a really good perspective as to what leadership really is, because winning teams always have the qualities that is necessary in a business world, and really vice versa. I mean, business leadership roles also equate over to the athletic field as well. But I think it's just one of those concepts that, it's really important to get that. And I think for most people out there, even if you're a senior one, some of you are still doing it only because of the salary, or that's what you were told to do. You still got to believe it right here, I think, all along, to really enjoy what you do every day.
That's a great
huge,
point.
Man. Yeah.
Good. Any final thoughts?
I think that I like your take on, everyone isn't a natural leader, but that's not a necessity. You can develop leadership traits. So maybe this will be the final question. If you were someone who aspired to lead, how would you go about developing your skill set to make sure that you were prepared when the opportunity arises?
Yeah. I'd probably find other leaders and I would ask them as many questions as possible, because you learn leadership through examples of others and finding out what works. And I think a lot of times some of that is visible, but some of that is someone takes you behind the red ropes, takes you behind the curtain as to what really is the secret sauce behind what you see them do. And I think a lot of times you do that by just going out and doing your research. And I don't get that enough. I'm not down on any particular age group or group of people, but I will say that in my growing up, we didn't have as much to look at and read on the internet or whatever. So we were just constantly asking and finding mentors. Yeah. And I don't often see that enough, to where people are coming up to you and saying, you know what, I want to be doing what you're doing someday. Can you help me along the way?
Yeah, that's huge advice.
Good point.
Good. Well, I guess I put myself on the spot there, but it's one of those often asked things that it's like, man, this just drives me crazy, but I love talking about it. Well, guys, thanks so much. I will remind everybody, if this is the first 3-1 Group video that you're watching or podcast you're listening to, please subscribe down below, give your comments as well, and also give your questions, because we'll address those in future episodes as well. For Kevin, for Mike, I'm Dave. Thanks so much for joining us. Tune in next time on the 3-1 Group.